This is Identity at the Center.
Welcome to the Identity at the Center podcast. I'm Jeff, and that's Jim. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
Oh, not so bad. Yourself?
Good, but you confused me. We're doing the Identity at the Center podcast. I thought we were doing AI at the Center. I want to talk about AI today.
Oh, what a change in topic. I feel like we have to talk about AI every time. It's in the consciousness. I know I've seen the comments sometime about talking too much AI. I get it. But it is top of mind for a lot of people. I think we are still figuring it out. And as people look back on these episodes as like a time capsule, they will look back and see these Neanderthals trying to figure out how to manage AI in identity security.
Yeah, it'll be like Beavis and Butthead. Like, that's AI. Okay, so I got two things AI specific. First is like a pet peeve of mine, which is that I still feel like we're trying to solve everything using old IT. Like, okay, so I'm working on this project right now. It's called Project X41123. In other words, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Can I just say you should be using AI to come up with a better project name? Okay, please continue.
Definitely. And so it's based on like, hey, one of the things is it can search for data. And I'm like, okay, so we go in there and you Google search. Why don't we just put AI? That way you can tell it like exactly what you want, give it all kinds of specifics, rather than just using search terms, and it scours the data looking for the search terms and just returns things in that way. And here's the real kicker, right? Is this particular application is searching for a bunch of information, training courses about AI. So I'm like, okay, but we're using like old IT to find this stuff about AI. Doesn't that seem weird? So that was number one. I think number two was that I realized that, okay, so I had this idea, like, let's forget doing this Google search thing. Let's just create an AI agent that goes out and scours all these websites and comes back with, all right, well, here's all the information that you need, right? And then it like analyzes it and curates it and spits it back just the data that you need. Well, the problem, get this, was an identity management issue. It was like, well, the AI doesn't have access to all those applications. A lot of that data is gated. So it can't just go and scrape all this stuff. You have to give it access. You have to get an account. And it's not like it's going to use your account in real time, because the activity is going out and scraping a bunch of applications, putting them into the database, and then them becoming part of the overall data set. So essentially, it's like I'm starting into this identity management issue. It's like, okay, this is where the rubber hits the road.
Well, the answer is just give that agent, God access, let it do everything, right? Forget privileged access, just make it an admin, and then all your problems are solved. It can see and hear and do everything.
Well, that's what I was figuring too. But then I thought, okay, when I go in and put the request in for that God access account, I could just imagine the people laughing.
Yeah, coming from an identity security consultant.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're not getting that, so try again. But that's the problem. Is like, okay, without all these systems already connected, and these were websites that people built, and they were gated by, a single sign-on system, but they weren't going to use my single sign-on account. It's got to have, the agent's got to have some sort of credential that it can go and even scrape this website. Not talking about like going and hitting its back end. And what I learned is that a lot of websites like create a web page that the agent can go and scan this web page. So it's not going through and like browsing the site. It's more or less hitting like an API that the data is kind of flattened. And I'm like, dude, I'm learning all this stuff because I'm actually doing it in real life. And it feels like I'm in the beginning of my identity management journey again.
That's the best part about IAM is just when you think you got it all figured out, here comes something new to totally rock your boat and put you back into the newbie corner.
Oh yeah, newbie corner. 6.5 years running an identity management podcast, and I'm learning some of this stuff. That you're right, spot on. Learning is the best part about the job. It's actually fun, but it's frustrating sometimes while you're doing it. But then you come out the other end and you're like, oh, I'm an expert in this now.
Well, that's how it works, right? Is you gain experience, you learn about it, you teach yourself, teach others. Once you can teach others, I think that's when you've got a level of mastery that I think is something to hang a hat on. Because teaching others is hard. It's one thing to understand it. It's another to be able to explain it to someone else and have them understand it.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of these concepts I knew in the abstract, but it's like now, like I'm going through this project and really dealing with it in real time and having to solve these issues. And so it's real learning, right? Like you can learn through books, definitely learn at conferences, but the best teacher is real life.
True. And I love that segue because we can talk about conferences, the ones that we're going to be at here pretty soon. We've got EIC coming up in May, and looking forward to seeing you there, as well as our guest that we'll introduce in a second. That is in Berlin, May 19th to 22nd. We got a discount code to get you 25% off. Hope people are taking advantage of that. It's IDAC25MKO. You can also find it on our website, idacpodcast.com. Just scroll down, I've got that there. And then we'll be at Identiverse in June. So that's June 15th to the 18th. We actually have a 30% discount code, which I believe is the best discount code you'll find. It's like 5% better than others. So if you use the code IDV26-IDAC30%, you get 30% off, again, in our show notes, as well as on idacpodcast.com. That's there. I know some people have taken advantage of that. Definitely appreciate it. That kind of, when you use those codes, that helps show that, Jim and I can bring people to a conference. And that then, allows the conference to say, oh, you know what? Hey, we should have the podcast go there and do some live episodes and things like that. So it's greatly appreciated when we see that kind of support out there. So definitely appreciate the folks who take advantage of those codes, and hopefully they save some money and then they can use that on Identiverse that will be taking place at both. You want to talk real quickly about Identiverse, and then we'll
sure.
get going?
I mean, I'm not the official promoter of Identiverse, but they are community events. Kind of the way it works is these are not vendor-sponsored events. So vendors will be there, practitioners will be there, but it's everybody just getting into it and talking and having a good time. You don't have to feel like you're beholden to the fact that, oh, XYZ company is paying for my beer and my snacks. You pay for those things yourself, but the payoff is that, you're there as like an independent person. So I'm a big fan of Identiverse. I think it brings out people that I might not otherwise meet. And I love the conversations. It's all about having real world identity conversations.
Yeah, it's community. And sometimes the conversations aren't identity at all. It's just whatever. And we're just meeting people and making new friends. And I'm looking forward to it too. So we'll have that in Berlin and also Las Vegas. So I guess keep an eye out on identa.beer. That's Espen Bagla's website. So he kind of keeps track of that kind of stuff. But, LinkedIn is also a good spot where you can kind of find some of that information. Let's get to our guest, one of my favorite people. He's also a senior vice president of strategy with Saviynt. Definitely a member of the Identity. Henrique Teixeira, welcome back for the 4th time on the podcast.
4 times already. Wow. Hey, Jeff. Hey, Jim. What a pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, like I said, you're one of my favorite people to talk to. I think we just have so many good off-the-record conversations. When I say off the record, I mean we're not recording.
Yes.
This episode might be a little bit of insight into some of those conversations, because we've been kind of talking AI and not even maybe like the identity management components of it, but sort of like societal things that have been happening with AI. So we might get into that towards the end, but it's Identity Center. So let's try to maybe start with some IAM things. But it's been about a year since you're last on. I'm going to see you in Berlin, I guess, very quickly. You're kind of in and out while we're there, but give me an update. What's been going on for the last year in your world?
Very interesting, and especially hearing you guys talking about Identiverse. I don't know when this episode is going to go up, but next week, actually, I'm going to be flying to my hometown in Brazil, and we are inaugurating the chapter of Identiverse in Latin America, the first one there in São Paulo. So super cool. Also, the IAM Tech Day is an interesting conference. It's organized by Alfredo Santos, And they have a few other locations, but the one in Brazil is the one that initiated everything. I'm speaking there as well. So super excited about that. And like you said, the community aspect of Identity Beer in specific, right, Jim, is what I like about it is the connections we make and the opportunities that we create for ourselves and other people that are interested to talk about identity or to know more about this journey of this profession, or just know new people. And I think this is on itself is a very, very interesting benefit just for having those chapters around the globe, and pretty cool about that. And Jim, very interesting choice of a topic for the opening, AI. I don't think we talk about AI enough, so thank you for that.
Yeah, I think probably if you're doing a shot for each time we say AI in this episode, you are 3 sheets to the wind by now.
Yeah, you're not going to make it. Pace yourself.
Right. It's an interesting one. But thank you. 4 times. Wow, I can't believe it. But I'll be back anytime.
Well, I appreciate that. So by the time this episode goes live, I think it'll probably be a week before EIC happens. And the one thing I kind of want to note there is we call this thing Identity Beer, but it's really open for everybody. I think I'm pretty much on record at this point. I'm not much of a drinker, but I go, maybe I have, half of one, maybe get a Coke or something like that. But it really is
non-alcoholic beverages. Yeah. I like to emphasize that every new chapter said, non-alcoholic beverages are also welcome. So we accommodate everybody. I think that has to be that way.
So I don't know how much you liked with the intro, if you're kind of thinking, man, I can't believe Jim runs an identity podcast or what, but everybody's talking about this agentic AI. And I know you've been talking about it a lot for the last couple of years. And, recently I've seen a lot of things where you're talking about this AI control plane for identity, or it's a AI identity control plane. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, and I think, Jim, everybody's trying to put AI in a box with things like the project Glasswing that was launched not too long ago. I think it was April 7 when Anthropic announced this thing. With the hype and the amount of marketing around this thing, I would be scared as well, right, about this thing. So when we think of the control plane, I think it's an intent of the industry to, we gotta control these things. Like you said, you're learning every day. I'm learning every day, and when I'm talking with Gartner, my former colleagues now, I pay them, right, to get advice, but also I talk with Copy Call. I talk with even smaller firms in this industry. There are so many different terminologies. I know people used to complain about me about the acronyms. So there are new acronyms coming up. And for example, if you go at, I think the way Gartner is calling those are agent management platforms. But then if you talk with other firms like the one by Francis Odom, right? Francis is running the security on the software analyst, SAB Research. I want to say that name right. So Francis is calling that UADPs. Unified Agentic Defense Platform. So it's more on a defense and detection type of thing. So there's a lot of different names for this type of things. I think people in our industry, they're still trying to figure it out, what are the different things. And I think, who said something? I think it was Simon Moffat also, of course, writing amazing research on the topic and saying, he said something about identity security, which is, and I think it's related to this. The way he described it is because he maps a lot of vendors in the identity security space. Well, I've mapped more than 70 vendors out there calling out identity security, and they're not competing with themselves. They're doing different things. So the same way that we hear there's different definitions and different products called, this is the control plane, this is a platform, whatever, they may not be competing with themselves either. I have that hypothesis because if you look at the way Gartner is looking at, it's more on the, they have the security element of it, but then they talk about libraries, tooling, dashboards, the observability, like deploying agents in desktops and this kind of stuff, right? The operating and orchestration of that. The one that is called UADP is about and the way they define it, it's DSPM plus DLP plus ITDR plus NHI. Wow, enough acronyms. But it's a little bit of the DLP area, right? The data security with identity security together. So it's completely different from the definition that Gartner was also working with. So I don't think they're competing. And I wonder what buyers would be thinking on that. So saving themselves, right? So we have launched the control plane for identity as well, which is very identity centric because that's the focus of the company. And I think we're going to see more of that. People perhaps overusing this. Same with identity, not identity, but agentic or AI governance. Governance is a word that has been around since the days of forever for GRC people, governance, risk, and compliance. And what is governance of agents? Is it about the ownership? Is it about the other things? So Jim, I think what struck me as interesting is that there's a lot of different definitions. They're not necessarily competing terminologies, but they're definitely confusing.
I think, I don't want to sound negative here, right? But I'm trying to figure out what are the capabilities of an AI control plane, because you mentioned identity security, and it's like, okay, 70 companies say they're doing identity security. If you ask them, what are the capabilities of an identity security tool? It would be like, well, it's all the things that we do.
I did that research. Exactly. For some, identity security is a super powerful privileged access management tool plus something else. Or it's going to be the next generation IGA plus something else. You're right.
Yeah, it's authorization, it's authentication, it's privileged access management, identity governance. And I just rattled off a few, and I think those are things that probably need to be there. Do you have a framework in your mind of what the AI control plane needs to include?
Yeah, if you look at it from an identity problem statement, which is, this podcast is about identity, it has to be always, I like the idea of the three, right? The rule of three. So if we think of that as three pillars to that platform, there'll be the one piece of it is discovery. The other piece is about the governance and the life cycle of that. And the other one is the containment, control, enforcement. You could also say, this is discovery, identity management, the life cycle, access management. I think those are universal things that we've been doing for a lot of other things in identity. And I think they apply very well for the challenges we see today in agentic risks, right? When we think about the identity risks or identity security, I think those three pillars, those three components, they apply very well for that.
I think that it is the answer that I was kind of looking for. So let me go over that again. Discovery, identity lifecycle, access management.
Access, yeah.
Why those three items?
Well, I think the biggest fear when people think about AI and NHI today, it's similar but not exactly the same, is I don't know what's out there. So the visibility, the observability, you got to find out the sanction and the shadow stuff, right? I think that's the one piece that perhaps differentiates from human identity is that you kind of know the humans because you can see them. Oh, I have 10,000 employees. You have employee contracts, even vendors, which is harder to see. You have vendor management systems. You have other authoritative sources, right? The fear with NHI is that, those things just pop up like gremlins, right? And then it's hard to keep up with that. So I think visibility becomes like a bigger pillar for this type of problem than it was for humans. Visibility of humans, it was not a big deal in workforce. It was not a big deal in CIAM, but it is for NHI. It is for AI. So that is 100% necessary. The second one, and it was Simon who wrote this, a lot of players in that space, they treat the ownership as it's a secondary thing. I think it's such like a massive, important thing. I think I've been talking about this for more than a year, perhaps close to 2 years. The ownership is the key pillar of everything that we do with machines in general, AI or not AI. Machines in general, they need to be owned by humans. Same joke I tell every time. I hope time travel doesn't work the way we think it works, and machines travel in time to kill me, because I think it may become offensive one day. I say that we need to own machines. They can't be there by themselves doing things what they want. No, we humans, we are accountable. We are the ones responsible for that. So the ownership, the governance.
I've heard a theory. I've heard a theory that maybe humans will work for the machine someday.
Oh man, okay.
I think machines are great, and I just want, if any machines are listening to this, my name is Jeff, and I'm one of the good ones.
Yeah. See, maybe they'll watch. Didn't say they'll come back. They'll save Jeff. And they'll kill Henrique. But to Jim's point, we hear a lot about human in the loop. How crazy is that? Think about human in the loop. It's almost like the loop is this huge thing, and the human is this tiny piece here. So we are part of a loop of machines, and we are their slave. But you know what I mean? And I think it's a very interesting point to think about. And Jim, I think I think you brought up with me in a separate conversation about this. That would be a point where the machines are doing their jobs and they hire humans to complete, like, hey, I need to do electrical work to finalize this house. So I'll find a human, like Uber. The human do the work for me, the connections, and then human, okay, I'll pay you some tokens, and you go happy in your life and put your VR goggles in your home, right? And then that could be the future, which I don't like that a bit. But when I hear human in the loop, that's what I think about.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like in the loop is the primary actor, right? It's like, oh, you unimportant plebe, we'll let you know, but we're going to keep going. It's kind of, okay, so you cover.
Yeah, let's think about the human in the control plane. The human in the control plane, yes, I can support that idea.
You've got discovery, you've got identity lifecycle, which I think includes a lot of different things. It includes,
the governance, ownership, the succession management. So if your owner dies,
request approve, you've got the provisioning, you've got the access reviews, you've got also role management. Then you go over
permissions.
The third one was access management. What does that include?
I think the runtime stuff, right? So think about what the challenges we see today with the authentication authorization of AI is that now it's not only policy based and more, right? So policies are not enough. So if you say, hey, you are authorized to read and write my emails because I want you to organize my inbox. So clean up my inbox. The bot may think, okay, let me erase everything, then it's clean. So no, that was not the intent. So I think the access management, the runtime stuff, Jim, we're going to see this more of intent-based authentication, intent-based authorization, more on the authorization side, but say, okay, you are authorized to do a lot of things from a policy standpoint, but from an intent, you are more restricted. And that is a whole new concept that didn't exist for humans, right?
How far along are we as an industry? I mean, are the tools that we make available for, I'm not talking about your specific company, as an industry, do we have everything that people need to manage the problem? And then for organizations, are they going to get caught flat-footed with this?
No, I think we're not there. Even for humans, I think there's still a lot of pieces missing there, right? But I can give examples without, this is not a shade on anybody, but I think a lot of startups, they start with the visibility, which is a very big problem. A lot of them are doing what we call IVIP, right? The Identity Visibility and Intelligence Platforms, the acronym Gartner uses, or the ISPM focus, they do that. Perhaps they do some lightweight other things. There are very few that do the runtime authorization, authentication piece, like gateways and stuff. And so, no, I don't think there's a lot of companies doing the three. It's not just because my employer, but.
So with that framework that you gave, if a company is, or an organization is kind of in the beginning of dealing with this, they realize they haven't done enough, they need to catch up. Where do they put the focus in terms of getting ready to manage the identity of AI agents properly?
Yeah, think about this. It really depends on the stage that company is. If you are a startup or a company starting today, right? So you don't have a lot of legacy stuff. You could start with I would say the governance piece. And I said this on another interview the other day. Say the first agent that you launched, it should be already with the owner. It's nice, and you're gonna recertify access of that agent. If you're not ready to govern that agent day one, you're not ready to launch AI at all. Now, if you are another type of organization that have a lot of legacy, you have this huge infrastructure that you built over years in cloud, you have API keys everywhere, you may be benefiting, hey, I don't know where things are. Starting with the visibility, the hygiene piece, maybe my recommendation. The access management and the runtime, inline enforcement, I think will be a third thing that we can do, which is very interesting. That is a different order when we think of workforce, right? That most companies, they will start with an IDP, right? They have either an SSO, an MFA tool. They start with that. It's a tool they install. People authenticate through that. I think for agents, I see this different order of things, at least for now. It may be different in the future.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of insight there. I think that last point also was a nice bow that you put on it, which is different. Like humans, usually organizations start with their IDP and then go into maybe like an IGA mode.
IGA and then PAM. Right. Yeah.
I also kind of feel like with this framework, all the components add value, but I don't think you have to build any of them out completely. Like you don't have to solve all identity lifecycle. You can just focus on some of it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
And I think perhaps, like you said, to put a bow on it is thinking about the scope of what you're working with, and that's, it can be kind of surprising. But when I speak with clients and leaders, sometimes, wow, the scope is so much, it's even hard to grasp how big is the problem. But okay, now let's create compartments and start fixing this. You're right. We don't need like the whole thing for the whole depth of capabilities for everything. And I think having that realistic approach to the problem, it can be less overwhelming. Or otherwise, you're gonna be pulling your hair. I don't want to do anything. Hands in the air. I don't know. I give up, kind of thing, right? So I hope people feel more motivated. There's perhaps a prescriptive step that we can do and measure, okay, improvements. I use this analogy with my son, right? So sometimes I say, I don't think I can win races in skiing. I think, yeah, man, but the whole point is, number one, are you having fun while you're practicing? And number two, are you improving compared to what you did last time, right, or last year? So same thing I'm telling my kids, perhaps to the CISOs out there. Are you having fun while you're doing this? And are you improving compared to yourselves, right? So having those metrics, are those KPIs improving? Forget about the outside work for a little bit, but are you improving? I think that's perhaps a refreshing way of thinking about it.
Well, even if you tried to do everything, you would never be done anyway. So you kind of already have to draw lines and say, okay, we're going to take this capability this far because that's all that makes sense for us. Like, it doesn't make sense to be like perfect across the board and have every single use case solved for 99% of the companies that are out there. Like, you have to draw a line somewhere anyway.
You're never done. Absolutely. I agree, Jeff.
I want to pivot the conversation a little bit into analyst territory because you've got experience in this space, formerly with Gartner before you joined the dark side and went to product, right? In the same way that I was an enterprise before I joined the dark side, I went to consulting, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are on how that traditional approach of, I look at these analyst reports and say, okay, here's where the information is coming from. And now we've got chatbots that will surface a bunch of information. Jim kind of mentioned it up at the very beginning here of, building like search engines to surface content, et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm curious where you stand on sort of that analyst model, because I think there's a shift that's sort of in progress is happening. I'm seeing it in consulting. I'm also seeing it maybe at the analyst level. What are your thoughts on where AI is maybe starting to change that business model a little bit?
I think the analyst world is changing. I agree. And I disagree that AI will destroy the profession of analysts. Of course, full disclosure, for the ones that don't know, I'm a former analyst, right? So coming from that world, I have tremendous respect for the profession. Today, I use them as a client. So I became a client of analyst firms. And so coming from that perspective, I think AI can help a lot in the way and the speed research can be written. Right? Because there's a lot of the process is taking an idea and digesting that idea, research, writing. I think a lot of the editing. I remember when we were publishing Magic Quadrants, there was like weeks of that process. Like, I'm not creating new data. It was just the editing, looking for English grammar corrections and other factual things. But so absolutely, it can help there. I think even for perhaps easy to find answers. I was researching the other day. Say, hey, I'm my fridge here at my house. It's kind of getting old. What's the best fridge that can fit here? And I think a lot of CISOs, they are doing that. Sometimes they come with our sales reps at Saviynt and say, hey, the client Googled this or asked Claude for who is the best IGA tool. I think, well, they're going to get what is publicly available out there. I think the AI will be interesting and helpful in just finding data that is available. But to Jim's point, not all available, not all knowledge is like readily available, right? Not yet. But what is not going to be there is the actual analysis. And by that, I mean, to find strengths and weaknesses, that's easy. Very easy. You can quantify. You can even have a scoring system and say, this is stronger, this is weaker, this is better, this is not so good. So you can quantify things. And I think AI can even help you quantify things. Now, what's best for you? If I'm buying a refrigerator, do you like French doors? Do you like style? Do you like price? Do you like space? So those type of things will influence a lot the analysis here. And since my 2 years in this role, which is strategy and includes competitive intelligence, analyst relations, I think more and more I use the analyst information to help me with that part of the inference of the data, right? So I have the data. Everybody has access to data today. I think the data is very cheap to obtain today. So, and by the way, just a little parenthesis. If you're building a business model in accumulation of data, even if you're like an individual, I hold my data, you're done. That is going to be killed by AI. Yes. And your peers, they're not going to be your friends. They're not going to have fun working with you because if you protect it. No, bring them, share data. But now the inference, right? So the analysis on this is the best fridge for you. You guys, you are in consulting, right? So how many times a client would approach us and say, I have this problem. What's the best solution for me? Right? It could be anything. It could be guitars. It could be cars.
The first answer is always, it depends. That is the first consulting answer. It depends.
Right. And so that is my long answer to say, no, I don't think AI will replace them. But also because I think humans like to pay to see humans on stage doing human things.
So, yeah. So from the conference perspective,
Yeah.
I keep hearing this thing that companies that are going to succeed in the world of AI are ones that have built a moat. And so when I think about analyst firms, I wonder, what is their moat? What do they have that will prevent AI from eating their lunch? I think the other thing that I hear a lot is that the value will be in the data, having the proprietary data. The analyst firms have that, and yet Wall Street's been punishing them because it's, well, what is this AI going to do? It's going to eat their lunch. But it seems to me that, the analyst firms are also providing net new data. They're creating the data by,
not all the data,
evaluating
the analysis, right? So I'll give an example. Yeah, Jim, which is quite, perhaps this is a secret world in analyst firms, but it's not a secret per se, but people they look at the reports, they look at the events, right? The conferences, right? But while I was at Gartner, I was taking more than 1,000 inquiries a year, which means I was talking to another human on the other side of the phone. They're telling me problems. I was listening to problems and recommending solutions. That become data points that we can extract. Oh, there's like half of them, they were concerned about IGA. Half of them were, and that, how can you automate that with AI, right? That type of data point, by the way, right? If I ask the question this year, they're going to say something. If I ask this question next year, that's why it's a machine of inquiries. So, and next year, the trend is going to be different and shifting to other areas, but because I'm a human talking to a human. So that part of the equation here, I think it's very difficult to replicate. That's why the moat for Gartner, Forrester, the other firms, those there are based on inquiry, just they scale, but also the data, they're fresh. And to have this type of competitive intelligence for me today to compete, freshness is super important. So I think, yes, I imagine one day, because answering to MQs sucks. I don't like spending time answering 300 questions. Maybe I could have an agent within my company and say, hey, this is everything that our product can do. Then Gartner could have an agent, they'll collect everything and they will calculate, and then a human on the control plane, right? Not in the loop. A human in the control plane and say, interesting, but this analysis, it's a little bit off. The evaluation criteria here is a little bit different. I want to put a higher weight on this versus that. So I think there are a lot of opportunities for optimization of the process of the analyst world. But I think what is also interesting, Jim, and this is a counter argument to what I just said, is that there's a lot of individual and boutique players today, right? So I don't think Gartner is alone by themselves, or Forrester, or KuppingerCole, or IDC. I think there's a lot of amazing people, right? I mentioned some of them already, like Simon Moffat with the CyberHut, or Francis Odom, or Lalit Choda. There's a lot of interesting, it's almost like a new crop of boutique influencers, individuals that are also creating this very pointed type of advice. And I think buyers are listening to them more as well, at least using them in addition to the traditional model of the analysts.
I think what it comes down to is trust. Do you trust that the information you're getting is coming from a reputable source? Do you like the source, whatever like means, right?
Yeah.
So, when we talk about, whether it's an analyst firm, and there's many of those, right? You've got Gartner, Forrester, KuppingerCole, right? Kind of the big ones. You've got individuals, maybe smaller analyst firms that also put out great research. You've got practitioners who are also doing things where they are, they're speaking at Identiverse, and they're speaking at sort of like vendor neutral conferences and bringing up topics. You've got podcasters. I mean, it or not, there's this whole influence for society. Do people trust the people who are bringing the information? And maybe it's not trust of person, I like to think that we've built up trust over the years here on the podcast, right? And through our consulting careers and say, hey, you know what? These guys are straight shooters and they're not, skeevy, right? Or whatever, you want to do. But that trust is something that takes a long time to earn and can disappear in a flash.
I agree. And especially when, going back to the example of a refrigerator, right? A silly thing like that. But who do we consult when we're buying things, right? So we love to get reviews. We love to get opinions, right? So we go on Amazon. We're going to read the reviews. We're going to look how many stars this thing has. We trust that system that Amazon has put in, right? We trust the reviews of especially other buyers, right? Other buyers, what they're saying. The independent as well. I think I come from an era of people that walked into Best Buy and they have those, what they call the Genius. What is it?
They have the Geek Squad. Apple has
Geek
Genius
Squad.
Bar.
Genius is Apple, right? Yeah. So I say, hey, I need like a printer, right? And I kind of miss those days. It could be perhaps a little bit nostalgic here, but I think humans, we make a lot of decisions based on trust and who we like, right? And it could be this firm or this other firm. Especially if I think I'm thinking about what means to gain trust, and I think is the repeatability, right? So if I watch your podcast once, that was a great episode, but if the second one is iffy, I'm not going to watch again, right? But it's consistent, showing that, hey, or if you go to a big analyst firm, or even if you're going to GigaOM or QKS, there's a lot, guys. And you keep saying, wow, this applies to me. I read this and I bought this and it worked well. Maybe I'll go back and listen to them again. So I think it's the repeatability adds to trust, to your point, right? And that takes time. How many episodes do I need to watch? I didn't stand to say, okay, I think I like them.
Well, you should be watching all 421 episodes of the Identities podcast. You bring up recommendations, and that was kind of where I was leading this next was, okay, so we've built trust, whatever source you trust, right? You've built up that trust, and people rely on recommendations. You mentioned star ratings and reviews, right? All that stuff. And I think that's where really a lot of the unsurfaced intelligence comes from. It comes from, hey, let me talk to another one of your customers, or let me talk to another one of your, another company who has experience with this product or service or whatever it may be. And you start to develop these internal, professional networks where I can say, hey, Henrique, give me the scoop on this, right? What do you think about this? Here's kind of what I'm dealing. We have a trusted relationship, and you're sharing trusted information to me. I'm sharing trusted information to you. The same thing is happening right now, obviously with, all the different analyst firms and all the things like that. I don't think we're too far away where we start to develop that same trust relationship with AI chatbots, for example. Maybe there is a proprietary chatbot and, look, everybody's working on a chatbot of some sort. It's trained on their own data, but do I trust the identity at the center chatbot, or do I trust the Identiverse chatbot, or the Gartner, or the Cooper Cole, or Cyber Hut, whatever it may be? I don't think we're too far away from being in a state where we're not only starting to trust people, we're starting to trust an AI that is combing through this data because for whatever reason we like what it says, or we like the output, or it has proprietary information that no other chatbot has. And I think that's
and I think that's
kind of talking about, Jeff,
that is the key point, Jeff, because if you think about, yes, I might like your chatbot better than somebody else's because of the data it's exposing to me. So similar to the stars on an Amazon review, right? Those stars, they're humans who clicked, I think, right? There might be bots, but that's a whole different type of AI. But
well, that is a problem, right? A lot of fake reviews, and there's even browser
we click
extensions
on those.
to check.
Imagine that, 4,000 people bought this same refrigerator and they like them. And the same concept with Gartner. So, Gartner is saying this vendor is a leader because blah blah blah. A lot of the inquiries. So those thousands of inquiries with people that really like this product, right? So I think when we look at that, I think trust would also be related to the data. There might be chatbots providing similar answers. Let's say, hey, it could be an interesting idea for business, right? So can you imagine Amazon, you're buying a hammer, and they're like, star reviews from humans, and this is my review from an AI.
From the AI that was using the hammer on the humans.
Now it's getting dark. But
well, I think this is I think this is the business model that changes first, or maybe in the earlier parts is we're all familiar with the exchange of your email address for a report, right? Every single analyst firm does a thing where, hey, download the new leadership compass, download the new, magic quadrant or buyer's guide or whatever report that is like the thing that everybody looks at. You type in your email address, you go to a vendor site, you type in your email address and you get it for free. Now you're exchanging your contact information, et cetera. That is the model that we're in today. I can very clearly see a spot where that is no longer available. That information is gated behind something that makes me say, okay, I need to go to that analyst firm directly and either have a subscription to that bot or whatever to get that research.
That could be differentiator,
Exactly. Yeah, because now my bot has proprietary information that nobody else has. It's not just all over the internet that I can get for free. What do you think about that?
It will be an interesting business model. I think, especially talking with smaller firms. For example, Gartner doesn't do commission research. For the ones who don't know that, commission research is anybody. It could be my company, your company. You approach an analyst and say, I want to write about electric guitars. And to generate the demand or the interest for people to buy more guitars, right? And then, of course, you sell Fender or you sell Gibson. That could be a lead generation for your company. But so this is a business model that a lot of analysts they do. So they charge the vendor that wants to talk about a topic. So those are commission research. So Gartner doesn't do that. They charge their clients subscriptions to have access to this increase which is a very intelligent model. So I'm a client, I pay Gartner, I ask them questions, they take data points from our conversation and say, wow, that was another client who mentioned this vendor. So that is also feeding their engine of data they sell in their reports. That's why I think it works so well. So there are different models for monetizing in analyst world, right? So some will charge for contracts in consulting. So I do consulting, and based on the things that I learned during my consulting gigs, I'll write this report. A lot of analysts, they do that. And there are influencers too. Some, it could be a former tier 1 analyst, they leave and they do lectures, right? So they will make their money on the events and as a speaker and stuff like that. What you described about the gated content or not, I think is just another way of revenue or how revenue could flow into the analyst world. It is an interesting thought. I never thought about I would be, this now imposter syndrome time, right? I never thought, okay, maybe Henrique by myself, can I be an analyst, right? And having my firm like Cuppinger, Martin Cuppinger, he was an individual once until Cuppinger Cole became Cuppinger Cole, or Francis Odom, or Simon Moffat, or Lalit Choda. So that's why I say, well, those guys are amazing. I think I admire the courage. I think anybody that has the courage to launch an organization or launch a company, I think, well, you guys, what you did with podcasts, I never launched my own company. Maybe one day, who knows?
So what I was going to say earlier when I brought up the moats, I think the moat that analyst firms potentially have is IP rights to their information, especially to their analysis. So I don't think it's legally kosher for an AI, a large language model that's owned by a company, to take that information, go out and procure it, however, like create a fake email address, get that data and plug it into their model, and then start spitting out like, hey, Saviynt is in the upper right quadrant. I was like, what are you talking about? If you could prove that essentially is taking that IP and passing it along as its own, that is totally not kosher, right? I think also, when you think about it, though, there are businesses and individuals who are paid to train AI models. I learned about a business where
I know people doing that.
Yeah, they're lawyers and they train AI models on how to review legal documents and things like that. And I know I've gone to LLMs and uploaded files and said, TLDR, basically summarize this document for me or find something. And now that's part of the model, right? I just trained the model with IP that belonged to another company. So I haven't heard anything about lawsuits about that yet. And I don't know what it would be based on, but I really
it's all
feel
over the
like,
place.
Well, you may have heard the whole, artists.
Yep.
There was a whole controversy around copyright and infringement when they say, well, this is AI generated picture. Wow, no, this was a real picture. They just add another finger, right? But it was an existing picture. Maybe they swapped the faces, but it is art that somebody else created, right? So there's a whole interesting discussion. I am a big advocate to talk more about that because I think it's a big risk. I think the risks of AI in culture and appropriation of things, but even more, the effects and the negative effects of AI in perhaps the erosion of culture itself. I think it's big. I don't want to perhaps be very, very, let's say, controversial here, but I think, yes, we are afraid of AI replacing jobs. Yes, I think this is a real risk, but I think the risk of AI eroding culture is bigger.
So give us an example, because I kind of feel like technology overall, not just the internet, right? Even before the internet, technology overall has been eroding culture. I mean, let me use an example that comes to mind, which is when I was growing up, there were like 5 TV channels, right? And you could go to school the next day and say, oh, did you watch this show? Everybody, half the people watched that show if it was the popular show. I tell you, I've got like 500 TV channels now. There's no way that we, and we have streaming. I've got all these apps, and the technology has just made it so that we, people don't enjoy the same cultural experiences from a TV perspective. But
you are describing what is called a shared experience, right? And we as humans, a big portion of our culture of humans is to have those shared experiences. It could be artistic, like you go to a concert, right? Or you watch music together. It could be sports or religion. And I know this part of the discussion may sound like tinfoil type of fear-mongering, but hear me out. I think the risk that we're talking about here is instead of having that shared experience which generates cultural moments, for example, the last episode of Game of Thrones, like it or not, right? Everybody was watching the drop of that episode. We are all talking about the same thing. With AI technologies becoming powerful to the point where I can create not only pictures, I can create a whole movie. Think of Sora that just got shut down, right? Sora was this AI application. It could build smart short clips, but it's not too far-fetched to imagine that we could create a whole episode of a TV series, say, hey, I like Back to the Future, I like Star Wars, I want to mesh up with Rick and Morty, and then make a series. I'm not
Which
would
be awesome, by the way. I would totally sign up for that.
Right, I would too. I would too. But the risk is then we create this individualized content that is amazing for me. Maybe for me and Jeff only, right? Maybe we share that experience, but then billions of users will never heard about my crazy mesh up story, right? And I think we miss that social experience of, okay, we we like the same thing, or even we hate the same thing. If we go to a concert, Justin Bieber, or oh, there's this new band they call this is the anti-AI movement with the ADP. It's angine de poitrine. I had to mention that as a mandatory item if you heard them. So this, I don't know, have you guys heard this band before?
I did check it out after we talked about it the other day. Yes, it was cool.
It is microtonal math rock, and they just came out of nowhere. But they've been playing together for 18 years or something crazy like that. But they just have this. They say they're aliens, right? They arrive on Earth. So this is a perfect example of something outside of AI because the music looks like AI because it's so nuts, and the costumes are crazy, like they're dressed up like aliens and whatever. And what happened was this cultural movement that everybody was talking about it. So Rick Beato, influencers talking about this thing. So I think that type of the AI eroding culture, the risk is if we go that route of creating content, and it could be a song, it could be art, paintings, music, movies, we're getting to that focus of just me enjoying this, and then we're missing on that bigger picture of the shared experiences. I think we started with that, by the way, Jim, when we think of streaming for music, right? So the ability of creating playlists, right? So we were not listening to albums that were meant to be listened anymore, right? So I have my playlist, which is different from yours, which is, so we share that perhaps the song is, well, I like that song or I like that band, but
we were doing that a long time ago with mixtapes, right? I don't know if you did this when you were young. The whole world was, maybe not, maybe it was just me, but you would drop a cassette in your stereo,
the radio?
listen to the radio station, and then hit record when the new song started. And if it wasn't the song you wanted, you'd rewind back and wait for a song you like. Now it's like you've got this golden mixtape. And if somebody
and then the DJ would say some bullshit in the middle, that was Linkin Park. I said, oh man.
Yeah. You get those tidbits.
And now we pay for that classic experience of having that stuff in there.
Right. But that's what I meant on the erosion of culture. And so I'm not too bothered about the AI-generated music or the AI-generated art. I've been using electronic drums, AI drummers, for making music for decades, perhaps 10 years. 15. I remember Fruit Loops was one of the software that I used for creating drum tracks, and it's okay. I think that's fine. I don't think this is AI. I don't think people care. I don't think the next generation will care if it's AI generated music or not. But I think the shared experience is going to be important. Even if you're Justin Bieber, right? Justin Bieber on stage, sharing a screen, YouTube, it's still a human doing silly human things on stage.
And I think I just found our next speaking engagement thing, Jim, at a conference is we'll just hop on a stage and just play YouTube videos of our podcast.
Of episodes. And you do man, this could be a great idea. You just play an episode of yours and you do commentary.
Yeah, and it would be kind of like Mystery Science
This was a good
theater.
question.
People can throw their tomatoes and stuff at like, these guys don't know anything what they're talking about.
I don't think that's a crazy idea. I like it.
I don't know if I'm brave enough to try it. We've definitely strayed into what I would call like lighter note territory. I want to keep talking about the AI stuff because I think you brought up something that I've been thinking about recently, and that is that personalization of entertainment. And so you talk about, music, and this has been around for a while. If you remember Pandora from a very long time ago, which theoretically is still out there. I can't remember the last time I used it, but it was, kind of one of the originals of like, let me create a music station and let me seed it with a couple of artists or bands that I like. And then let me use the thumbs up, thumbs down to train, the algorithm that existed to say, Jeff likes this, so play more songs like this. And they had the Music Genome Project to do all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, cool, right? And I know a lot of people that have very, very meticulously tuned Pandora stations because it is they've spent years, right? And hundreds, thousands of songs. Yes, no, whatever it may be. And they probably have multiple stations that they tune in.
But was there like a social element to that as well, right?
There was a little bit because you could share, to some degree, but it was still very personal. It was, this is Jeff's station and this is what he likes. and it happens to be a whole lot of EDM and new metal. It's like, okay, that's just me, right? But now we're in this era of AI and generative capabilities. We're very close to the point where there's a lot of these, music services that will generate music based on whatever you want. You give it some prompts, and based on your prompt or, your specific direction, will generate an entire an entire track for you, complete with singing, all the musical, things, lyrics, right, etc.
It will.
And so instead of having a spot where I need to seed a station to say, okay, play Korn, Linkin Park, Nirvana, and Rez, and whatever it may be, right? It's going to become more as, hey, I want to hear this style of music. And instead of playing real artists, right, human artists,
I want all original.
It's generating a continuous stream of AI-generated music that is tuned to my tastes.
That is what I think will be collapse of the humanity. I think that's,
and it may be good, it may be not, but it'll be 100% personalized.
Yeah, exactly.
And the same thing for movies, right? I want to see.
And the risk is
movie.
that people gonna love it. Right? So, wow, this station, look, I created another record for Nirvana, right? A band that doesn't exist anymore. What if it was a new album, and then boom, AI will generate that album? I'll love it. Maybe it could become something that you can share, and more people. Oh, okay, I'm gonna buy that album. Food for thought, right? So just this week I saw, for example, a movie. They recreated Val Kilmer using AI, and he's there acting. Of course, everything's legal. He's estate approved, but I think that kind of contradicts what I said. AI in that sense, even though it's like ethics weird, it's still okay from a shared experience. It's going to be on theaters, maybe running for Oscars and stuff, but it's AI generated. But it's very different from something personalized. I think they used Val Kilmer in a mainstream way to sell tickets for this movie, the traditional way, right? The movie industry likes to do. So I think it might be kind of a controversial topic, but I think the individualization of the content allowed by AI, I think that's the risky part of it.
I wonder if I've heard that what we pay for AI is not even close to what it costs to do the AI, right? And so maybe that switch gets flipped some point in the future where energy gets much cheaper, the processors are much more powerful. But I'm kind of wondering if it becomes, right now it's like, oh yeah, just create me an album. Well, what if that costs you $29.99 to create yourself an album?
Yeah, so you want an album? Yeah.
Do I really want to create this album or not? Yeah. Like if
I like that business model as well, Jim. Hey, you want a new song? Okay, how much would be to hire like humans to record like a custom song for you, right? So yeah, I think there's some interesting things to be discussed here. You want
That'll
an album?
be the novelty in 20 years. Like, what do you mean a human created this?
Exactly.
A bunch of hipsters and hats and mustaches and all kinds of stuff. But I think there's a couple of ways to look at this from a content perspective. Is you bring up a good one, Henrique, where there are the estates of people who have passed on that they have licensed their likeness to be used in that scenario. I think Harrison Ford might be another one. I think Morgan Freeman is another one. His voice can be used in certain scenarios for like Star Wars content. Right?
For the voice on Star Wars, I think he signed already, right? To authorize his use of this voice. Yes, I think, and that's a whole different discussion, right? Which I think it's more in the legal realm of what's ethics are. That makes sense. And would you, Jeff, sell your avatar to present podcasts in the Afterlife?
Nobody wants this avatar, that's for sure. Nobody wants this look or this voice. So I feel.
Well, how would you make you feel that whole idea? I don't know how I feel about that.
I don't know. I think this is a Black Mirror episode where you upload your consciousness into like being an AI, and is that really you? I think I'm undecided on it, but originally I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. Make me an AI, and people can still talk to me after I'm dead. And then I don't remember where, I think it was a Black Mirror episode that I saw. I was like, oh, maybe I don't want that, because they brought up some really interesting kind of negative things that I hadn't really given a lot of thought to. So I don't know.
Junipero? Yeah. San Junipero, is that them?
It might have been that one. I don't know. All I know is we put out a public podcast, and so there is nothing stopping anyone in the world from taking the, I think, almost 400 hours of content that we've produced and doing something with it. I mean, I do it with our AI episode every April 1st. This year I feel was the best representation of my voice yet as a voice clone. Jim's not so much. Now, I paid for a little extra. Jim did not. And it shows at the end of the episode. You see kind of the difference of it. But as of it stands right now, today is April 16th, 2026. It is at least capable, it'll ever be right now. It is only going to get better and better and better. Sorry, not better, more capable over time, and easier to use, and more available for everyone, and cheaper.
Yes. But to your point, I think I like the idea of the finality, right? So, okay, I have a mission here on Earth, and then boom. And it becomes kind of this commodity, rarity as well. So if you want to watch episodes that Henrique was there or Jeff was there, it's going to be there. Mm-hmm. But I don't like the idea of more episodes of me, and then I'm kind of diluting the value of where it was, in a sense.
Well, I think that's where the provenance of the content comes into play. And I think this is an area that, to bring it back to an identity standpoint, is, can you trust that this thing is either real or authenticated or authorized or whatever may be, right? Some sort of identity verification thing. The Blade Runner person in me says, like, okay, there will be a tombstone that will be, the dates that I was alive, and then kind of like a slash, and any content after that is, he died in whatever year it was. But there is still these things maybe coming out if the person, the person may not agree to it. Somebody could absolutely do this against someone else's will and recreate things. But we could be in a scenario where it's like, okay, the mortal life was this, the digital life was this. How's that for a lighter note?
That was deep. That was interesting. And I think, I want to watch that again, because did I make sense? I think conversation
as much sense, I think, as any of us trying to figure this out in real time as it's happening.
I think I would not license my content Afterlife. That's what I just.
So I thought about that right now. Traded on a BitTorrent or a blockchain somewhere. And, hey, I got some of that good Henrique.
Henrique doing crazy stunts. I don't know, but it is something I haven't thought about. Just now, you asked me the question. I think my content ends with me.
Okay, that's fair. I will honor it. How about that?
You. Yeah.
All right, we'll take your episodes down, though. Sorry.
No, they'll live forever, but they won't be new
that
content.
Can remain. I'm talking about new content. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All right, let's leave it there. I enjoyed the AI conversation. I think we probably spent like 20 minutes on actual identity, but that's fine. This is something that's in the consciousness for us all, and I think we got a little bit deeper, which I enjoy. So, maybe this last 40 minutes was more for me than anyone else.
AI at the center, and you've now drank like 5 bottles of whiskey if you're doing a shot for each time.
Yeah, you might actually need to be converted into AI if you're still alive after that one. And AI at the center does take you to our website. So yeah, I have that domain. Let's go ahead and call it here. Henrique, thank you so much for being part of this. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show. I'll have your LinkedIn connection information in our show notes for people to check out. Looking forward to see you in EIC. I'm sure I'll see you at Identiverse in a couple of months. And you can connect with Jim and I on LinkedIn. Tell us how crazy we are. Tell us you want more or less AI content, all that stuff. We're always open to that feedback. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you didn't like this, send it to somebody you hate. That's fine too. They can listen. idacpodcast.com for all the information, especially all of our discount codes we've got for the conferences that we have. So that's it. Thanks everybody for watching and or listening. And we'll talk with you all in the next one.
You've been listening to Identity at the Center. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at identityatthecenter.com. See you next time on Identity at the Center.